live from Houston, Texas, and just outside of Charlotte. Welcome to everyone to today's episode of What Makes You Tick. Look, I'm really excited that you're here. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping notes and some to make it a great experience for everyone. Today, I have an amazing guest and honored to connect with this guy again for the second time in the month. Before we begin, just a couple of quick notes. This is an interactive live session. You're encouraged to ask questions and connect. To ask a question, just drop it in the chat. We'll bring key insights to the conversation. We'll use LinkedIn DMs and the comment section for the event's posting for any behind the scenes coordination. So feel free just to drop a message whenever you can. If you have any issues, let us know and we'll try to address them. If you get disconnected, which it does from time to time, or LinkedIn will occasionally do that, simply rejoin. We know many of the listeners are commuting or still working, so engage however you can. Even quiet listeners are an important part of our community. Thanks again for being here. Now let's get started. My guest today is a gentleman I connected with through a mutual friend. He is a veteran software engineer, a devoted father, and a relentless learner, currently pursuing his computer science degree at WGU. His goal is to finish his bachelor's degree in 6 months. 6 months. Yes, I said 6 months. All of these are qualities that we want to highlight within our show. He's known for its thoughtful approach to leadership, his passion for potential growth, and his unique ability to blend deep technical expertise with emotional intelligence. To that point, he is currently attempting the entire bachelor's degree in computer science in 6 months. Wait, did I say that already? I think I did. This man started programming at age 11, and then left college early to pursue a challenge. He built a 20-year career as a software engineer before returning to school. He is the host who I've had the honor of being the guest on the Power Knot, a podcast where guests share their stories and learn how to tie a bow tie. His journey is a testament to building trust in oneself, finding clarity in your purpose, and you know how I am about purpose, and gaining traction by staying committed to continuous improvement. Welcome, Juan Boyce. Juan, thank you for being here. Give our audience a brief overview of your story, man.
Oh, my story? Let's see. Started programming at 11. Um, Actually learned how to code before I learned how to ride a bike. I was, needless to say, a weird kid. Um, I've been had a because learned to code from, I guess, a relatively early age. I had a certain clarity about what I wanted to do in life, not unlike, say, a lot of professional athletes, right?
Right.
A professional baseball player doesn't learn how to play baseball in college, right?
Right.
They go to college to be among other people at their level, to be among their peers, and to play and be discovered. So that was me. I went to college. I felt unchallenged. I do have the goal in 6 months. I have my little jar where I keep a marble for all of my credits. So this is where I am after 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So halfway
That's
through.
pretty
Well,
full. That's
well,
pretty
no,
full, bro.
I've done the math. It's more than halfway full. I am, gosh, about 60% of the way there. So that's good. All right, yeah, I'm excited to do this. I really want to be a trailblazer for stars like me, people who are skilled through alternative routes. That is
Right.
to say, if you think of your favorite professional athlete, you know, if you look at, say, Michael Jordan, yes, he went to UNC famously,
Yes.
but that's the thing. We know he is good at his sport because of he's good at his sport. Does that make sense?
I know
And
he had
and
Michael. Michael, like if we want to talk basketball, Michael Jordan, we can talk all day because that dude was a man. And you talk about him and Tiger Woods. You said something a minute ago. They knew what they wanted to be, whether they were programmed or not.
exactly.
Look, for me, that's one of my big pushes on education because if my audience doesn't know, I went back to teaching, and I am a teacher now, and I start Wednesday with kids. We've been going back to. It's crazy how many people don't know. Like you knew early, you had clarity in your purpose. That doesn't happen. And I wish we had. I'm going to make a push, and I'm going to say it right here. And I probably said it many times. Our school system needs a way to incorporate kids, or the ability for kids to understand what their purpose is. Once you do that, like you just said it, you know where you want to go, and you set your own goals. I don't set them as
Yes.
a teacher. You set them, and you're the one that accomplishes everything. I had a conversation with a kid today. We had our freshmen came in while we're working in our rooms, and we did this little funny thing. They were running their schedule, trying to get used to it because freshmen are just freshmen. They're just different. And I asked this kid exactly what he said. He told me exactly what he wanted to do. And I looked at him and I said, "Do you know your purpose?" He wanted to be a Marine. And I said, "Do you know your purpose?" He didn't. That's why he chose the Marines. This is a freshman. They just don't know. And we don't have the ability to teach them. I mean, we do as teachers, we do as parents, but just the way we're focused on so many things, the kids miss out. And like you're a great example of, man, you're going to do this in 6 months. You knew from an early age, you started programming at 11. That's awesome that you knew that purpose. How did you, but let me ask you this. Where did you find the clarity and trust within yourself, since that's what makes you tick, to be able to do this in 6 months? Why did you set that goal?
The degree, 6 months. Oh,
Yeah.
very simple. The thing is, we there's this assumption that everyone has a degree, and the degree it's not considered extra, it's considered like a baseline. And I really don't like the idea that not having degree is considered to be a deficiency,
Uh-huh.
and to really demonstrate that, hey, I'm not deficient in anything. I really know my stuff. I really wanted to say I'm going to do this degree, but I'm going to do it very, very quickly. And then in doing it very quickly is really going to demonstrate, number one, that there's a good deal of knowledge that I already possess, right? And then two, it's going to demonstrate that I have the ability to learn, because that's the thing. I don't like the idea that the degree is this gate. Does that make sense?
That
I believe
complete.
that there's multiple ways of getting to the same place. Like, and forgive the analogy. I might make a lot of analogies, but if I get to work, maybe I drove, maybe I took public transit, maybe I took a bicycle, maybe I arrived in a helicopter, who knows? But the point is that I'm there.
Correct.
And you wouldn't interrogate me and said, "Oh, hey, we need proof of your parking space. Otherwise, we don't accept that you're here." All right.
Yeah.
And just like, Michael Jordan went through UNC, but Kobe Bryant went directly from high school. And there's even international people who they came from their international leagues and whatnot, right?
Right.
And it shouldn't be about which way you came to arrive. It should be, hey, once you're here, let's look at the stats, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I really like how sports is like a true meritocracy, and no one is going to say, oh, Shane Battier is better because he graduated from Duke than than someone who was a one and done.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Shane Battier, great player, but I'm just saying that let's focus on what people are able to do, and not worry about whether or not what they did when they were teenagers.
Well,
I feel like when
yeah.
let's say you don't necessarily make great decisions at that age, and why should I be judged by that?
Correct. No, no, great. Because one of the things that that I think is huge is a lot of people are felt like they have to go to college. You don't have to. It's a great way, and like I appreciate everything you're doing and admire you trying to do, but I don't like the way that we as education system push that on, and then you get into the business world and they look at like it's a box you have to check to be able to get in there, and it doesn't. We miss the people piece. And you mentioned something earlier about focus. So for me, and this is one of my little bits I like to do. For me, one of my things was when when I was never a reader, so I started to read and then I started to listen to books and I want to highlight a book because that's one of the things that helps. You mentioned focus earlier. I want to focus. For me, the book I want to highlight this week actually fits. It's a software design guy. It's called Love as a Business Strategy. And Mohammed does a great job. He's got, this simple idea of lead with trust, vulnerability, and empathy. And he takes a people approach within his business. And if you listen to the book or read the book, he goes in and talks about where they started and how his leaders that he chose the leaders, but the leaders were focused on KPIs. They were focused on number and data. And when they started they did well. And then as they started that downturn, he had to start laying off people. Some of these people that they were laying off were talented, but they had to lay them off. So he really changed his business around. And I'll tell you what, there were two things that left an impact on me reading this book. It's one, it started my why path. And it helped me discover what why means and why it's essential and exactly why it's important. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's your purpose. And understanding how this fuels our motivation, it sharpens our focus and it ignites our passions. Those are things once you tap into, allow your business or your family or whatever you want to focus it on to thrive. The other lesson, which I really, really connected with, was being open, honest, and truthful as you cultivate a culture of relationship. And I'll be completely honest and vulnerable here. I, as a younger kid, that was what I believed in. And now, as I'm an adult, I still have that same belief. The only difference is that now I'm secure enough to where I can speak that. Whereas when you're a younger kid, a lot of times we want to be truthful, and we really have this belief, but we don't because we're afraid of what the other person thinks. And it took a lot of stuff to go through that. And if I can make an impact on somebody's life doing that, I want to. How about you? I know you had a book. Show me your book.
Oh yes, I'm actually a big reader. Um, this one is called Math with Bad Drawings by Ben Orlin. It's great. I'm a big math guy. I don't know. Is it wrong to say I'm good at math? I used to be good at math. In a lot of ways, programming is like math.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you know I wanted with taking the computer science degree because I could have taken, say, a software engineering course or something else. I really wanted something that was, had real math in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when I was in college the first time, I don't know. Again, this shows how much of a terrible person I was when I was younger. I was like, oh, I don't want to take decaffeinated computer science. I want real computer science
It's not
with
being a bad person. It's just that those are lessons we learn as we grow up. Yeah.
yeah. I'm more I don't know, aware of how people can be different. But yeah, I like this. It's just about math, but it kind of explains things in a nice way.
Is it
Gosh,
technical or does it have a little humor to it?
oh, it's definitely got humor to it.
Okay, good. Good.
It's. I mean, it's not quite a picture book, but you can see there's pictures in it, so it's not as dry as your standard math textbook. You know.
Yes. And I'm laughing with you because you have a background in math. I was actually, a quick story, when I was in college, I was there to be a baseball player. It's funny you were talking about athletes. And my counselor called me in and said, "Hey, what do you we need a minor. I looked at her and I said, first, what's my major? So I know what I'm majoring in, because I was there majoring in baseball. And I looked at my stuff. I took math, and I remember taking the two other math classes that I took afterwards. I got a D in one, I got an F in another. I tried to drop it, and he said no, it was after the date. He wouldn't give me one. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to pivot to something different at that time. And I loved math, but it was one of those things where, man, it just didn't work. So I appreciate the humor. That's why I was going with that. I appreciate the humor in what you're talking about. So a quick reset. Today, this is my 11th podcast. What makes you tick? It's an authentic, relaxed, purposeful conversation on trust, clarity, and traction. Why? To incorporate your purpose into what you do and how it impacts your lives and others. How do we do that? By sharing business and personal stories and building culture of trust, creating a clear, impactful message as a leader with insight into how to build traction within your life. Not just your business, but we can talk personal. We're going to share stories that help you grow as a person. Today, I have a conversation with Juan Boyce. Juan, last time on the show, made me tie a bow tie. We're not going to do it today because I still don't remember, but I do appreciate it. Look, one of the things, and we're talking about the impact of people. And for me, like, there's always been the one I always go back to is there's been so many, man, now I think about it, there's been so many negative things that have impacted my life. Events, divorce. I was cut as a freshman. I did in high school. I was cut as a freshman in college. I still played 4 years. I still did all these things. These negative impacts or these negative events or negative people in our lives can really change the way we look if we allow it. From every one of those, it kept me on a direction. I was going to prove this person wrong. My divorce, I wasn't going to be that bitter person. I wanted to be the one with the positive energy. Those things make a huge impact in our life and the ones around us. What about you? Tell me, what are do you have a person or a story or a couple of them that have really impacted your life, Juan?
Well, let me say this. I think what really uh, got me started is when I first left college, my goal was to get a job, that if not in tech, at least tech adjacent,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And I was able to land a customer service job doing a tech support at an internet startup company, which was great because it's tech adjacent. Tech support is it's not necessarily the highest tier of tech, but at least I was in the field.
Right.
And I think what was great about that is it really gave me a basis of communication because tech support is about communicating with people who don't necessarily have the same information you do. They're not necessarily using the same
Have you?
language that you're using, and you really have to listen not just to what they're saying, but you kind of have to listen between what they're saying
Mhm.
so that you can understand, hey, what's really happening with them. And and I, I think that going from being a pretty good student and just kind of knowing what's going on to being in a system where I had to work my way up. I think that really really impacted me and helped me out. And one thing that I did was that I had a manager who was willing to work with me to help me
Right.
transition over into a different department. And so I was able to take on some additional work, and I was able to use my programming skills to automate part of my job.
Yeah.
And then that got me noticed by the CTO, and from there I transitioned into my first real development job, and then haven't really looked back since. That was nice. And I think just maybe it goes back to what you're saying about trust and
Right.
clarity and purpose. You know, uh, because I trust my abilities as a programmer. I'm always looking to program, even if I'm not officially a programmer.
Right.
And that gave me a clarity of, oh, I need to learn this in order to do that. And then that got me the traction I needed to break into tech.
And I'm listening to your story, and you're talking about trust, and a lot of times we think of trust as trusting one others or others, and there'll be an article coming out this week. I wrote actually about trust and building trust, and how I'm not a big person of building trust, but most of the time that's what we think is. But it's important. Like what you're telling me is, if I'm hearing this correctly, is you're talking about trusting yourself. Like you took a chance on yourself and started out by trusting yourself, which created a clarity and a path within the job that you took, correct? Even though it wasn't a job that you really wanted.
Oh yeah, well, I figured that if I'm in a tech adjacent field, at least it gives me a path forward. Do you get what I mean? And even just leaving college, that was definitely a risk there, but I figured, hey, anyone can go back to school, and it just so happened that I was able to get a job that was, like I said, in my field, got a job as a programmer, and as I alluded to before, I'm a reader. I had a big stack of books from the library about resume building and career stuff and networking and all the things that I needed to know to try to get in through the side door, the back door, instead of to the front door.
Right.
But and I think that really helped me to build my career. But now I'm kind of changing that, and that I'm pursuing my degree so I can kind of go through that front door. But
Hmm.
my goal is to really open that front door for people like me who haven't necessarily completed a 4-year degree, simply because I believe that, and maybe I'm putting my trust in people to say, I'm going to trust you to that the things that and you
Right.
can demonstrate the things that without necessarily needing to validate it in that one specific way, which isn't to say that, there's not validation. I believe that there are, I don't want to say something negative, but I think there's something, for lack of a better term, lazy about relying on certain easy to see filters, like, oh, they worked at this other company,
Yes.
therefore they must be good, or sometimes you've got
Yes.
to do the work yourself.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out who is good, and you
Hmm.
have to understand, what are the actual skills that someone needs on the job,
Yes.
and that's part of what I'm doing, because not only am I studying to get my degree, I'm reflecting on it like every week,
Yes.
and I'm thinking, what are the things that I'm learning? What are the things that um, you know someone who doesn't have a degree might not know that someone who does have a degree would know? And
Yeah.
I really want to understand, what's that difference there, and can I be in a position to hire someone without a degree, and just kind of fill them in on any gaps they might have that are legitimately useful and
Yes.
relevant to their jobs. does
No,
that does that make
it,
sense?
yeah, it comes down to it. Really, it comes down to the person. And I think one of the things we look at, we get caught up in. If I'm hearing your story correctly, one of the things that we get caught up in is we look at a resume, and
Mm,
if you don't have that you don't have the degree on there, people, they miss you, and you might be the one that can come in and do the niche or be able to help them take them to a different space because of your perspective. you're pursuing the degree not because of, yeah, you're pursuing it because of you, because you want that front door, as you said, and to be able to open up. So in this, as far as, because your mindset's good, and I love the mindset. I'm a big mindset person. Is this the biggest change, or was this one of the biggest thing, the company, the job that you took and the role that you moved up in, was that one of the big things that helped you change your mindset and create positive opportunities? Or is there something else in your life that happened that changed that?
You mean that first job
Yeah.
that I had?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that definitely changed my mindset. That gave me the mindset that I don't necessarily have to take the standard path, because I didn't take the standard path into that job in the first place, right? I did that job because I was able to demonstrate my talent, and then and I've worked for like a few different startups, and the nice thing about being in a startup
Yes.
is that you have not a lot of red tape. You it's, just a few people, and if you can figure things out and get things done, that is like a very valuable skill. And then you mentioned perspective. I think that there's a certain homogeneity of perspective that you're going to have if you have a room full of college graduates. You get what I mean? Because they all learned the same way, whereas I've learned in a in a space where there was a lot of ambiguity and there wasn't necessarily a quote unquote right way of doing things,
Yes.
and I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own, and that's
I
actually
admire that
very
too. Yeah.
yeah, and that's actually a lot of the way that I really learned when I was a kid. Like, yeah, I did have some programming books, but a lot of stuff I was able to figure out, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, And I don't know if I may indulge you with another story. There was
Please, that's what we're here for. Yeah.
yeah, when I was in middle school, I remember we had computers, and I figured out a way to install games on them. But I was able to do it in such a way that the IT people couldn't figure out how to uninstall it themselves. So I
Right. Right.
just and what they did is they were like, "Hey, you've got to get rid of this game." So what I did was I just hit it that much harder. So I'm like, look, it's clearly not there, but you type in a password and boom, it's there.
Mhm,
It's
mhm. How did you?
uh,
Okay, how did you figure that out? I'm amazed because, granted, okay, so remember, I'm a teacher, and I see this, and it's one of those things where, da, 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 but in the back of your head as a teacher, going, "Dang, that's pretty good, dude. How did you do that?" Yeah. So, how did you do that? I'm interested.
Well, I figured out a way of being able to put spaces in file names, and at the command line, you can't really switch into a directory
Yeah.
if there's a space in that file name. So
Did you
I
find that
figured
out
out
on your own by accident or just playing around?
just kind of playing around, and once I was like, oh, so then I was able to write a little a program that would actually switch you into that directory and drop you in, and then once you're in that directory, then you
Yeah.
can start doing stuff. But
Yeah.
then if you use like the normal tools that are, um, they have all kind of problems trying to access a directory with the space in it. They're like, and that was exactly what I did, because that's the thing. I learned by doing, learned by
Yeah.
getting my hands dirty.
Same here, and we, with everything we're doing right now, it's funny because you said two things. One, the team I work with, the biology team I work with, amazing. And I'm sitting down today to look at some stuff, and they overcomplicate it because of the education level they're at. I have to be able to simplify it. I have to have an understanding of what it is, but I've got to be able to relay it to a freshman. I've got to be able to simplify it and put it in a clear manner so they can. So it just creates more work for me. But I'm laughing at your, when I was in junior high, you're talking about putting this in. I'm working on a Commodore 64 to learn how to do a design for Hangman back then because we were doing
Nice.
basic. That was when computers were, and I actually loved it. So this conversation, there's a little bit of a side of me that when I was younger, loved that programming. It just, I wanted to play baseball and do some other stuff before. So it never kind of took off. So I really, really love what you're doing and what you're talking about. Look, we'll come back. Let me do a quick reset here, Juan. Thank you guys for listening to this 11th podcast. What makes you tick? Juan and I are having an authentic, purposeful conversation on trust, clarity, and traction. If you have any questions, drop or comments. We'd love to have your engagement. Juan, any takeaway so far from our conversation?
Oh, you know what? I'm just kind of trying to be present, and not to be too much about school because it is something that I'm doing, so it's very
Yeah.
present on my mind. Um, I'm trying to use my listening skills, which is something that was in communication. So
Yes.
just like I said, just trying to be present here. And then another thing about being present is you've seen I'm more than halfway done. But that first month of school, I was really passing my classes very quickly,
Yes.
and because I knew that there's some amount of knowledge that I already have, where there are certain classes I know I can pass them,
Yes. Yeah.
but I didn't know what my velocity would be once I get to quote unquote real school and I'm actually learning things I don't already know. And
Yes.
so I was so worried about being behind that I didn't necessarily have the balance that I should have had.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now that I've got like goals and I've got a schedule, and I'm on time with my schoolwork, so I can have a lot more balance and I can be a lot more present, and I especially I'm present with my family now, and of course I'm isn't here with this podcast, and
Yes.
that's what I want to do is I just want to be you know here right now when I'm here now. Does that make sense?
No, it's look, and one of the things that I'd love to discuss here in a minute is about persistence and overcoming obstacles. For me, it was baseball. I ended up playing 4 years in college. I ended up meeting a lot of people, and it's funny because we look at accomplishments, whereas when we get onto a path, which is one that you're on, and we stay persistent, even if we don't achieve that goal, we get close, it still creates our path in front of us. And if I don't do that goal and don't finish that goal or chase that goal because I'm not persistent, because I know it's one of my purposes, I don't get to, like, I got to coach guys that played NFL football, that eventually played Major League Baseball, several state championships as a coach. Wasn't even close as a player. But because of that path and because of the obstacles I chose to overcome, you get those. And I think that's one of those things that you have to as a person. And you're going through that now. Is there another time before that? Because you'll be able to say this, when you've done, like, this is what I accomplished. Is there something where you were really persistent, or an instance that sticks out your mind where you were persistent to achieve a goal and it helped you to overcome some kind of obstacle?
Yeah, I want to say that in my career, I know logically that there's some superset of companies that out of the how can I say this? The companies that would hire me as a person without a degree is a strict subset of the companies where I could, do the job and do it well, right?
Right.
But I would say that I exercise like a level of persistence that I don't know, like for 20 years, it literally did not matter, because even though, like, out of, let's say I don't know, 100 companies I applied for, maybe 50 of them probably didn't even look at me. But the fact is I was still able to get a job and,
Yeah.
and still able to, do very well at the jobs that I did get. And I think I was able to, just, have good references and continue to work. So I think there was like an extreme level of persistence there, and I have been working as a web developer for 20 years, and the web has changed dramatically over those 20 years.
You're
So I've
reading
had
my
to
mind.
be.
I was going to ask you that same question, but go ahead and go in a little bit in depth on the changes. I'd love to hear them.
Oh gosh, man! Everything's Ajax now. Everything's API driven now. It used to be HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and but now it's frameworks. So you're looking at what Angular and React, and even if you're looking at CSS, there's all these CSS preprocessors. So
What is,
there's a lot of
elaborate a little bit on that because I like you've piqued my interest, but I have no idea what language you're speaking. Because
Okay, well,
I learned back when you taught basic.
yeah, well, I'll say it like this: what is delivered to the browser? It's still HTML, CSS, and JavaScript,
Yes.
but a lot of what you have are frameworks like React and Angular are two very popular JavaScript frameworks, and it's not necessarily. Important to know plain JavaScript is to know specifically React or Angular, these particular frameworks,
Yes.
because you're going to arrange your code in a certain way, and it's not necessarily and how can I say this, as a programmer, there's many different ways to arrive at the same thing,
Yes.
but Angular and React are opinionated in the ways that they're doing certain things, and you really want to understand how though their code flow is organized, and just I don't know, it's like an abstraction layer where even though you're still building HTML,
Right.
you're really trying to understand these different objects and the way that they're putting it all together, and there's so many different tools that you use to build websites. You really have to understand these various components,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so with Angular and again React, you're using you might be using npm or something to build your site or your application, and you've got all these dependencies and whatnot. It's definitely a lot more complicated than it used to be. It used to be like when I started, you could read a book and then kind of go.
Right.
Now, oh, good lord, you'd probably have to read, I don't know, I don't want to say two or three books
Wow.
instead of just one book.
Is that because it can do so many different things now?
It's probably because it's it's not so much that you can do there's so many different things. There's just so many different ways to do it now.
Yes.
So when I started, I learned a particular way of doing things. I
Yep.
worked
Yep.
in
Yep.
a platform called Cult Fusion,
Yep.
but there was a chapter on HTML, a chapter on CSS, a chapter on JavaScript. Think of those as the base building blocks of web pages and websites,
Okay.
you
Yes.
know?
Uh-huh.
But there are these other tools that will output those building blocks, so you don't learn the base tools. You learn the tools that make those tools. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
so you have another abstraction layer, and it's almost like maybe in the 70s people used to do a lot of assembly code, or they would do directly machine code, right? And
Right.
then you had your higher level languages like your C or your basics or whatnot. You get what I mean?
Right.
So it's like you're getting further and further from the bare metal. And that's what I mean by that. You're getting further and further away from the bare metal, where you have code that's generating code that is your web page.
That's
Does that
so.
make sense?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. To be honest with you, it's that's way above my head, but it does make sense. The complexity within of from where I started and what I used to do when I learned in high school and a little bit in college. Yeah, it's come so far because that was mine. Mine was with the dinosaurs. Um, but it does make sense. Look, we're getting close to last 5 minutes here. One of the things that I always love is I had a conversation with somebody the other day and we talked about chasing your dreams. And somebody asked me what drives you or what's at your core. And the one thing that drove me was I remember when I was a kid, it stuck with me was do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I think that's one of those things for me. It's a foundation that helped me drive or understand what my dreams are and drive towards them. Because you're working towards a dream right now. If somebody asked you, what advice would you give that person on chasing your dreams?
Well, let's see. It's a good question. For me, I believe I always had a lot of clarity in what I do, and I know that I'm intrinsically motivated to really solve hard problems.
Yes.
So that's what really like drives me. And so what I would tell someone else is, you have to understand what drives you. What's going to make you intrinsically motivated to do these things that you're supposed to do.
Yes.
And I think that once you've unlocked that motivation, it unlocks persistence, it unlocks clarity, it really unlocks a lot of stuff. And maybe that's part of knowing yourself and knowing who you are. And it goes back to what you were saying. We tell kids to follow these directions, but we don't teach them to discover who they are so they can follow their own direction. So as soon as they graduate, they find themselves aimless.
Or they go to school and they drop out because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know why they're there. They know they can handle the work, but they just don't know why they're there.
Yeah,
And-
possibly. And it just goes back to it's like I don't know. It's like every middle class family wants their kid to go to college, but to what end?
just to go to college and get a degree. Wait, that sounds familiar. Yeah, to go to college and get a degree. That's it. That's
Yeah.
part of that's because that's what they're told that they are supposed to do. But now you can. I mean, being an entrepreneur, there's all kind of things that you can do or the kids can do nowadays um, to pursue their dream, or even adult. Like at my age, I'm I've got another gear and another second curve in me, and I'm going to go because there's a dream that's starting to shape up, and I want to chase it. So it's one of those things like what you're saying is you got to find that purpose. And I love the way, like, ladies and gentlemen, we didn't script this. We're talking about trust and clarity. It's just that's why he's a guest. It's not, it's one of those things that when you start having that conversation about trust and how you trust yourself and everything around you, and it creates the clarity within your dream. If you can trust yourself, and that's what you're saying, trust yourself, what you feel here, and then the clarity will come on what you're supposed to do. I love that. So we've got a couple more minutes. I don't know. Mine says 45 minutes. We'll go past 45 minutes. It doesn't bother me. But the one thing I do want to, the last piece we always discuss, and we kind of led into this, me working with younger generations, and I see these kids, and I've seen so many kids over my 20, this will be my 22nd year of teaching, and being out in the business of working in restaurants and everything that I've done. What would you what advice would you give the younger generation of how important trust, clarity, and traction is in their lives?
Oh, it's extremely important, right? I mean, if you don't have trust, clarity, you're not going to get traction, right?
Right.
You aren't going to know everything, right? So at some point, you're going to have to trust something, right? And so and
So let me
so
ask you this. I'll clarify this for the younger group.
yes, yes.
What is trust for you? What does trust mean for you?
Trust is for me is operating in a state of ambiguity, right? As in, you don't know everything that's going to happen, but at some point you're going to say, you know what, um, I'll, I'll tell you this, like, for that first month when I was just going through school, right? I had no way of knowing how fast I would actually be able to go through
Right.
class, and
Right.
I'm telling people, I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this in 6 months, and maybe I'm going to look like an idiot, but I had to trust that, you know. I know a lot of stuff. I'm good at school. I read a lot. I'm able to retain a lot of what I read. I'm good at math, and that's the thing. And I just trusted myself to say, look, I'm going to go put in maximum effort
Yes.
and just do everything as much as I can. And then once I get to a class where I'm actually learning something that new, then that'll give me the clarity that I need, and now I'm to the point where I have that clarity, and I does that make sense?
Yes.
I don't
No, you're making
know.
complete sense because you're talking about faith as trust and trust as faith. And when you look at your strengths and you understand your strengths, I'm a baseball guy. I'm a football coach. My job was to go and look at my team and look at their strengths and be able to apply where they are. I had to trust they were going to do the job, but I had to create the clarity within the path to help them understand. Same thing with you. I would also do the same thing. I'd go into an opponent or potential opponent's venue and scout their team. And I had to look at their strengths and their weaknesses and then trust we could come up with a plan that would create clarity for our team and be able to um, create a path where we could win. Same thing. You're saying the exact same thing. It's about here, and it's about just when you know who you are, what your strengths are. The trust is just trusting the path that's coming in front of you, and that you can handle whatever it is. And if you can't, it's a teachable moment. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yes, absolutely, man.
Juan, look, we're out of time now. Any reflections, any call to action that you would like to say before we go?
Oh, thank you for having me here. I don't have any particular call to action. You can look me up on LinkedIn. On Tuesdays, I post about my school journey. So that's definitely something that I reflect on, and we'll see if I can't get the other 40% of these marbles into this bottle before December 31st rolls around.
I think
So
you've already done in 6 weeks 60% of that, so I think you can. And tell us about your podcast real quick, or mention your podcast so they can
Oh,
find.
that's right. My podcast is the Power Knot. So what we do is we learn how to tie a bow tie. So not too bad. I'll just tie one right here. All you need is a neck and a bow tie. And the thing about life is that you can learn how to do things, not unlike learning how to tie a perfect bow tie. And it's okay, just like in life, things might not always quite go as planned.
Yes.
Maybe things take a little longer than what you expect, but in the end, you can pull it together. That's I don't know. I should adjust that a little bit, but uh, that's okay. It's life. It's live.
That's
You know, I'll
that's
leave it like that.
that's awesome.
Oh,
Look, check out Juan on LinkedIn. Check out his podcast. Look, follow my show, follow his show, share. We'd love to grow the audience. If you like it, if you have any ideas, send me a message. If you'd like to be on the show, send me a message. I don't have a problem with telling you no, but I'd love to say it. Yeah. Follow. I do have a monthly Pulse newsletter. Please find out what makes you tick, or the Tick Pulse newsletter. Juan, thank you. It's been a great show. Thank you for everything you've done. I appreciate you being here.
of course, of course.
Let's look. My challenge is always, let's make an impact on our communities through trust, clarity, and traction. I always want to be transitional over transactional. You can find me on LinkedIn and stay connected with future episodes. Reach out. Juan, again, it's been amazing. Find my friend and let's get connected. Join me next week for a conversation with Kate Pearson, the CSO for CAPS Network. We're going to dig a little bit into education. Please go and have a fantastic week. See ya.